The first time that I read a book that reflected some of my experiences was when I read Hunger by Lan Samantha Chang. I was in college as an undergrad and I was doing a thesis on Asian American literature. And I had kind of decided that I was going to try to read everything I could that was by Asian American authors that was traditionally published. And I felt like I did actually read almost everything. There were just kind of at the time only handfuls of those stories. And most of the ones I read were focusing on an older generation in a world that felt like sort of the one before I existed. And this book, it was given to me by one of my teachers. It was written by one of her teachers. And it was the first time when I felt like there was some focus on kind of my generation of Asian Americans. And I always feel as a writer and as a reader that there's such a big debt to that early generation of Asian American writers. It feels like what was possible in publishing then was different. And a lot of those stories that I was reading, they had kind of this lens that was applied to the story that felt like it was being written for an audience that wasn't an Asian American, didn't know what the story was about necessarily, didn't recognize a lot of what was happening. And so everything was sort of explained, and I felt like the stories were being written kind of past me and over me versus to me. And so Hunger was the first time when I felt like, oh, this is a story that is written maybe for people like me. It sort of assumes that the audience is familiar with what it's talking about. And I think there's been such a renaissance lately in Asian American fiction, and there's just such a wider variety of experiences being written about and showing up in these stories that I think was made possible by these earlier stories that happened. And that was the first one for me. I do have to say that as someone who is mixed race, I still don't feel like I've found like the one story that really captures maybe both sides of my experience or what it was like to grow up somewhat as somebody with maybe 2 feet in different worlds. But I feel like that story's coming. There's been so much lately that's just really expanded the possibilities of what Asian American fiction can be. And so I really believe that story's coming, and I'm really excited for that.